welcome back. This is episode 14 of the Woke-ish podcast. This is Ebony.
And this is Zelma.
So again, welcome back. We had a week off and then I guess for those of you that were celebrating the 4th, I went to LA to visit my family, which was fun. And Zelma hung out with her family here, and we just figured that, we've given y'all 13 episodes of solid content with no breaks in between, and it was time for a breather, but now we're back and we're refreshed.
Yes.
And actually this week we're going to start out with something a little bit light, kind of more like media, even social media oriented for our What's Being Slept On segment. But before we get there, we will start out with our shout-out segment.
Yes, and so I wanted to shout out the Resistance Revival Chorus. And so they are a diverse choir of women that sing outside locations where immigrant children who are separated from their parents are being detained. And so they just stand outside with signs and they sing. And they sing different types of songs, and it's supposed to provide some comfort because I don't know if you've been up to date on social media, but they're not even letting people give toys or people visit or people see any of these children. So they're just standing outside singing so that the children could at least hear them. And they say that this is a way for them to provide some sort of comfort in a way that uses their talent. And their motto is joy as an act of resistance. And so I thought it was cool because it is you feel kind of helpless into other than just donating money. What can I do? And I thought this was a very creative way, not only to use their talent, but to be able to resist in a way that kind of circumvents the rules of, you can't come inside the building. And so definitely wanted to shout out the Resistance Revival Chorus. You can follow them on Instagram and see videos of them actually doing this in front of the detention centers. And so definitely big shout out to them. And then the second shout out is to 22-year-old Janae Seaborn. I might have mispronounced her name. But she became the first Black female nanoscientist in Virginia. And so I had to look up what a nanoscientist was. And apparently a nanoscientist is someone who studies the development and function of the nervous system. And she graduated from Virginia Tech. But I thought what was crazy is she is not only the only Black person to earn a science degree at Virginia Tech that year, but she was the only person of color in all her classes. And by graduating, she became the first Black female nanoscientist in Virginia, the whole state. So definitely shout out.
In the whole state.
Yeah, in the
I
whole
missed
state.
That part.
No, not just Virginia Tech, but the whole state.
Oh, that's crazy.
Right?
I am so proud of all these firsts.
Yeah. And she's 22. Yeah, and so shout out to her family. I'm sure, they're super proud. And she made a post on Instagram, and she was just you could tell she was super excited and very much well-deserved. And she said she really wanted to thank the people who were mentoring her, the people who didn't support her. Just, it must have been very isolating to be the only person of color in her classes.
Oh, God,
and the only Black. And she said that they actually had to look up the fact that she was the only Black person to earn a science degree that year, and that she was the first. Because people were like, nah, this can't be true. And they looked it up and they were like, oh shit.
This is why, even though I feel the way I do about academia, this is why it's necessary to have more, people of color in academic spaces.
Yeah.
So that students can see people that look like them, that they have to look up to, and they can ask, what did that feel like?
Yeah.
Like, what was that experience like?
Yeah.
If mentors are so important. Like, I mean, I'm not sure if she had any, but hopefully, and if not, that sucks, someone to be like, yo, this is what I'm going through. I am the only one.
Yeah, so big shout out to her, and shout out again to the Revival Chorus. Some positivity. We like to bring in some positivity in the midst of a lot of negativity that we see. Yeah.
Okay, so now for our In the Know segment.
Yeah, so we just wanted to talk about the 12 Thai boys and the coach who were rescued from the cave. And so I'm sure you guys have heard about this story because it's been on the news
beaten to death.
It's been on the news for like a while, like the whole week that they were figuring out. And so just to recap, they're all out. And 4 boys emerged at a time. And so what they said is that the weakest...
I wonder how they decided who went first.
The weakest went first.
Okay.
The weakest in health
are
the ones that went first. And then they said if they were able to make it, you know what's fucked up? They were like, if the weakest were able to make it, then they felt really strongly about the other people.
I was like torn because at first when I was hearing that, I was like, I would have been like just passing out and throwing up. Like, I need to get out of here. Like, I am the weakest.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, it's like, what if you go out and the plan is not really all the way fleshed out? Yeah. That's jacked up.
Yeah. So they survived 9 days before they were found by drinking water dripping from the cave walls. They were between the ages... I know. They were between the ages of 11 and 17. And they were the members of the Wild Boar soccer team. And so they apparently had entered the cave system in dry weather during an excursion with their coach. So they like intentionally went into this cave to explore
what kind of group outing is that?
I don't know.
Going into a cave?
Yeah.
Do they not have like amusement parks? I'm sure they have amusement parks. Like, why do I need to go to a cave?
And then the group was cut off because heavy rain started flooding the cave. And it's like rain season, so that's why they couldn't leave all those days. And thankfully, some divers found them, but they were, 1, surprised that they were able to find them, and 2, surprised that they were able to find all of them alive.
Yeah,
and so all the boys, along with their coach, are alive, and they're being reunited with their family. However, one Thai Navy SEAL rescuer died trying to refill the oxygen tanks. And so I saw that they the boys held like a memorial for the Navy diver. And then I saw that a Buddhist temple was holding some ceremony right outside the cave. And so, I mean, this is kind of similar to the cave, the people in the cave, or in the miners in Chile. So,
I saw that movie.
And there everyone survived too. Yeah. So it was just kind of, it really took hold of the media because they were all alive and we really wanted them to make it. And so I just kind of wanted to highlight that story. I know by now this story has kind of been, wrapped up because they've all been rescued and they are being reunited with their families, but really wanted to just point that out because they already said, and there's a lot of jokes about this, that they're already making a movie. They already are in the works to make a movie about it.
I'm sure they are. And while it's still fresh in their mind. Because, this sounds... It's like, I'm like... They've been reporting on this story like every second of the day for the last few weeks. But even though that is the case, it's still crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like, even though I've seen inside this cave, and it's like my eyes are seeing it, but I just cannot imagine.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the drinking water dripping off the walls.
Yeah, they said they had to rescue them at night because if they would have done it during the day, because they dehydrated. Because they hadn't seen sunlight in so long, it would have really hurt their eyes. Yeah, and then they had to be kind of isolated from their families because they said there's a lot of animals in the cave that could have gotten them sick.
Jesus.
So they had to make sure that they weren't contaminated or sick before they were reunited with their families.
Yeah, this is tragic. I feel really, I don't know. I feel really bad for them, not just because they had this, really traumatizing experience, but because of, the aftermath. They're probably going to need all this therapy and all of that, and, I already have issues with the dark inside my apartment.
Yeah, they're definitely braver than me. I don't know what I would have done. I probably would have had, a breakdown.
Yeah, no, several panic attacks. Without a doubt. So, for our second In the Know discussion, we're going to be talking about Brett Kavanaugh, who is President Trump's new Supreme Court nominee, who will be who has replaced retiring Justice Anthony Kennedy. And so, y'all have probably seen this circulating as well, but just trying to really figure out what we think of him. So not the fact that he is replacing Justice Kennedy. I know that there have been lots of conversations about Roe versus Wade and how, afraid we are of the possibility that they could repeal that. But also, according to Huffington Post, though last week, more than 200 students, staff members, and alumni of Yale Law School signed an open letter calling for the institution to rescind its apparent support for Kavanaugh. The open letter to Yale argued that Trump's nomination of Kavanaugh is the president's way of overturning Roe versus Wade and making abortions illegal. The letter pointed to a dissent penned by Kavanaugh in which the judge denied an undocumented teen the right to seek an abortion while in federal custody in Texas. It also highlighted another dissent written by Kavanaugh that argued the Affordable Care Act's contraceptive mandate violated the rights of religious organizations, even though those organizations were granted an accommodation that allowed them to opt out of contraceptive coverage. The letter's authors said Kavanaugh's past opinions give us great concern that he will consistently prioritize the beliefs of third parties over the oppressed, including in cases involving abortion and contraception and medical care for transgender patients. So, I think that everybody is kind of on the same page about how fearful we are of Roe versus Wade being overturned. I don't really think that the reality of that possibility has set in for me, just because I'm like, what? That's so backward. How could we do that? Especially claiming to be, this super power in this like super progressive country. Like that would be taking us back literally decades. And I mean, there's just something that like intuitively is preventing me from kind of seeing the perspective of like pro-lifers. Like I don't, and so I guess maybe with that, like that, I mean, given like your previous or former beliefs, could be something that, we could add to this conversation, because I'm just like, how do you not think that it's reasonable to allow someone the choice? Like, if I choose not to do it, then fine, I'm choosing. But if I choose to do it, I should be allowed that choice. So and also, I think that what confuses me is the fact that this comes from conservatives who believe that the government should have as little influence over people as possible, like as little involvement. And yet, you, like, imposing these constraints are exactly that. Like, you are mandating that people not be allowed to do this, which we talked about beforehand. And, like, I've heard some people, I can't remember the woman's name, but some government official was being interviewed and was talking about her own experiences with abortion and how, she did it, I guess, during, like, the 60s or 70s at a time when, like, actual, like, legal facilities were not available. So she went to, like, a back alley type thing. And, she was saying that she's fearful that if Roe versus Wade is overturned, it's not going to be that people don't get abortions. It's going to be that they take, like, really sketchy routes to do it.
Yeah.
So are we actually concerned about people's health or not?
Yeah, I think there's, like, central points of arguments for Republicans, and one of them is the pro-life stance. And so I went to a Baptist university, and we had to take a Christian ethics class.
For undergrad.
And in the Christian ethics class, we had to choose debates. And so, same-sex marriage, but one of the most common debates people chose was abortion. And so hearing the reasons why people were pro-life is that they pull on, and I'm not saying that it's not hypocritical to just choose several Bible verses that fit your beliefs in one instance but not in another. But so breaking it down, they pull on verses that say that, they pull on Cain and Abel and saying that, God held, it was two brothers who, one of the brother murdered the other, and when God was asking one of the brother who murdered his brother, he was like, where's your brother? And he's like, am I my brother's keeper? And so, like, that in that story, the moral is, like, you are responsible for other people, and if you commit murder, their blood is on your hands. And so then people additionally pull on verses in the New Testament where people talk about how you are responsible for those around you.
That's the interpretation that people
That's one interpretation. Yes, that's one interpretation that people pull in the pro-life argument, to say that God holds you accountable for the murder of people. And you hear people say abortion is murder. Abortion is murder.
But so they're not taking from that he murdered his brother.
So
it's that you're the murderer yourself, and so you are responsible.
They're saying in allowing a government to enact abortions, even though you yourself are not getting an abortion, you are quote unquote you're standing by when other people are getting abortions. So therefore, you are doing nothing when someone is being murdered. And in that, you are also held responsible for that baby's murder. It's the extreme position.
So everyone in the world.
Yes.
I guess for you're talking about the United States.
Yes.
Everybody in the country.
Yes. So as a Christian, you are being held. It is your duty and your obligation to not allow the murder of that child to happen, because you are going to have to be held accountable to God for for not stopping it.
So I wonder why none of them are supporters, or not none. I don't know why so few of them, conservatives, are supporters of Black Lives Matter. With that same line of thinking.
No.
But anyways.
Or even of the immigration, the children, of if all lives, if the whole thing is they're saying that life matters, but if that life matters, doesn't the life of a child, of a 14-year-old child who gets shot by the police matter? Yes. It is very hypocritical, which is why I say I think it's, and then also, if you really want to get literal, Catholics, some Catholics don't allow contraceptive because they also take it to the further extreme of you're murdering future children. By not allowing the woman and the man to reproduce in the way that God wants them to, you are playing God and keeping future children from being born. And that in its own way is murder. And so, the people...
I mean, I don't necessarily believe in that, but that thought process makes sense. Yeah. That, there are only a certain number of sperm that can impregnate a woman. So if there are millions, then,
it doesn't make sense to say, I'm pro-life, but I support the death penalty. Because it's if you're saying that the murder of a child is you're going to be held accountable for, then are you not held accountable for the murder of a person?
And see, this is why I'm so against categories, because I think that they really confuse people, right? And so a lot of these folks probably support Republicans or conservatism just for the pro-life stance.
Yes.
And not all the other stuff.
Yes.
But because I'm pro-life and I'm over here with the conservatives, now I have to support conservatives on all their initiatives. And it's no, you don't. You should be able to say, yes, I agree with y'all on pro-life, but all this other fuck shit y'all are doing, I disagree with.
Yeah, but some people are, if you think about it, if someone is telling you, if you don't do anything about abortion, you are going to be held responsible for all the millions of babies that are dead, and if that's your belief system, then you're kind of okay, fuck Trump saying grab him by the pussy, fuck Trump saying all this. If he's going to put a Supreme Court justice, and I swear this happens, if he does that, then people are going to say his presidency was worth it. It was worth it for all these terrible other things to happen if we could get that one thing that's really important to his conservative base. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you're not in that mind, if you weren't taught that, if it's not something that you believe, which is something that I used to believe, I really thought I was going to be held accountable for the deaths of children, and that it was my job to vote and my job to make sure that this policy wasn't, that we made it not only difficult for women to have abortions, but made it illegal so that it wouldn't happen. But then you realize, okay, it's just, people are going to do them anyway. It's just, and you're right, you can't just pick and choose and say, okay, fine, separation of church and state, but I want the government to regulate this, or I don't want the schools to teach my kid this, but I do want the government to make sure that this happens. And so, just seeing the hypocrisy of I'm against the death penalty, and seeing, okay, well, it doesn't make sense for people who I align with to be so pro-life, but yet don't give a shit about, the death penalty, or about seeing how, even now, if you see the whole immigration separation of children, like, you don't see the pro-lifers being like, no, keep the children. It's all about the children. We're going to be held accountable for all the bad we do.
The crazy thing is that pro-lifers don't care about the life once it's born. Yes. They just want it to be born. Because if you look at all the kids that are living in poverty, and yet at the same time, these same conservatives are against welfare and are against like government aid. And so it's like, well, you want the kids to be here, but then you don't care about their quality of life after they're here. Yeah. It's like, yeah. I mean, and I guess that's maybe, again, one of the, not justifications, but one of the things that allow them to not feel compelled to, like, support not just Black Lives Matter, but even this March for Our Lives. Like, even that, you still have these, like, gun-toting conservatives that are against that movement. Yeah. Literally kids saying, our schools are being shot up, our friends are being killed. Yeah. And they're against that. Yeah. And so it's like, how can you, literally you see people who have, I mean, like, in terms of social media, have in their bios, pro-life, proud gun owner, all of these different things that are counterintuitive.
Pro-life, pro-gun,
pro-life and pro-gun.
Pro-capital murder, yeah. No, and that was one of the I mean, to me, the biggest thing that made me leave the Republican Party and made me kind of switch to, and I don't think I'm like super liberal, but made me disillusioned was just like, it just didn't make sense. A lot of things didn't make sense. And just like you said, it really felt like the pro-lifers, I thought it was really about wanting to, really caring about life. Life is sacred. Life should be sacred. But then seeing like these same people that are like pro-lifers, you find out later that they got their mistresses abortions, or that like they are all, they're all about sanctity and whatever. You find out that they're having affairs, and you find out that
right. So you have to be like, you have to believe in the sanctity of marriage in order to believe that your mistress should have an abortion. But then, can you really believe in the sanctity of marriage if you have a mistress in the first place?
It's just, it was too much hypocrisy. And
that happened recently, too.
Yeah, right? And like, so for me, it's like, maybe I won't get one, or maybe I wouldn't feel comfortable, but that doesn't mean that I think that I should dictate to other people what they can and can't do, because I know people who've had abortions, and I've never met someone who had an abortion that was like, yeah, and I went back to work and everything was fine. I never thought about it again. It didn't fuck with my life. I didn't think about it twice. It was fine. Like, everyone who I've talked to have told me it was a very difficult decision. It was really heartbreaking. It took me a long time to recover. I don't know if I'll ever get over it. Like, it's not just, they act like it's just something that women are just like really, And then the final frustrating thing is just like, these are all men making decisions. And so if it wasn't just these men making decisions about things that will never impact them personally, it's just even that much more frustrating. And so I think that with this nomination, it really is getting to a point where they may be the closest that I've ever seen of getting it overturned. And I am expecting all the conservatives to rally more behind Trump and be like, okay, like, this is it. This could
really, definitely secure him for a second term.
Yeah, like, this is, yes, like, this is real. Like, he did good. Like, look at God. Like, look at what he did. Like, all we had to do was, like, and, these are people who aren't personally affected by all his other policies. And so to them, it's like, oh, it was worth it was worth it if we're able to save all these lives of children. But are you really going to stop people from doing this? I mean, there's laws against a lot of things that people still break and do, and
isn't one of the big reasons that of course, xenophobia and all these things, but I think that for a lot of people, a lot of their anti-immigration sentiment comes from fear of overpopulation. Right? Yeah. And so it's like, well, I don't understand. Like, I don't know. All of these things are so counterintuitive. Like, they just don't make sense.
Yeah.
They just don't make sense. Like, if you're forcing people, or in the way that you think that you are, forcing people to have more babies that, one, they can't take, that a lot of people can't take care of, or, women that are, or this argument that if a woman is raped and then she becomes pregnant, it's God's will. Mm-hmm. Like, you're doing all of these things that are, just so harmful to people, and will also increase the population.
Yeah.
While you are anti-immigration because you don't think that we have enough resources here to support them.
Yeah, while you're cutting Obamacare and cutting welfare and cutting food stamps. So you're cutting the resources that would potentially help these children, but also increasing the number of children that would be born to people who may... Because one of the reasons that people get abortions is because they can't afford it. Yeah. It's not all... They paint the picture of, like, this woman who, like, doesn't want to lose her figure. And it's like, that's not...
What? Is that the argument?
That's one of the arguments that people use. It's like, women are selfish, that women, like, it's like they just want to keep, having casual sex, and having a baby would stop them from doing that. And another argument...
First of all, do they think that women are impregnating themselves? Like, I don't understand why men are just absent from this conversation. Like, what about all the absentee fathers? Like, so that would force the woman to raise a child that maybe potentially the man does not want. So she would have to raise the child on her own.
Yeah.
And with all these resources that y'all are snatching. No. And the men are completely absent from this conversation. There's no conversation about what the fathers are doing or what the fathers are believing. Or the fact that a lot of fathers even force their hand and force women into abortions by saying that, I'm not going to take care of it. I won't be involved. So you can keep the baby if you want, but I won't be there.
Yeah.
Or if you want an abortion, I'll pay for it. Just like, oh boy, I can't remember his name, I think was he in Trump's administration? Or one of these administrators who, like you're talking about, paid for his mistress to get an abortion and they dug that up or whatever. And it's like, what? You're one of them. Yeah. And yet you're a pro-lifer.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's just that these narratives and stereotypes that they use about women to make it seem like, and if you hear that and you're not educated and you don't know, then you're like, oh yeah, that's really selfish. That is not a reason why you should not have a child. So we'll definitely keep an eye on him. I'm expecting, I don't know if they're going to they're saying that they're not going to vote on him until after the midterm elections in November. So hopefully that gives more time for people to vote. So that's why it's really important to vote, because, Congress can do a lot.
Yeah.
And so hopefully...
So y'all need to get y'all picket signs ready.
Yes.
It's going to be time for some marching.
So people who don't normally vote, like, you may think, like, well, I live in a red state or all this. But it's like a lot of reasons why those are red states is because a lot of people, especially younger people, aren't voting. And so if you vote, population-wise, there are more people between the ages of 18 and 24 than there are people like 50 and above. So if everyone just votes, then we can really shift and we can really address and make some changes. But definitely something to watch out for, something we'll probably keep talking about.
Yeah,
but
I think we should have like a midterm elections episode.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that for our listeners, so that I know sometimes it's really hard to know who's on your side and who's okay and who would vote for what, who would do that. So we'll definitely do a recap as we get closer to November. So look out for that episode, and hopefully that could be a way that we can contribute to spreading some more information about what you can do to kind of feel a little less helpless about all the terrible things that we see looming ahead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, and now on to something equally as trashy, but I guess less relevant. We will be talking about hip-hop and all y'all's favorite Nicki Minaj.
So I strongly suggest that you wake the fuck up.
Okay, so now we are transitioning into our What's Being Slept On for the week, where we will be discussing hip-hop, and particularly starting with the Nicki Minaj beef with Wanna.
Yes.
And for those of y'all that don't know, this started out on Twitter.
Yes, and so Wanna, she's actually a Nicki fan. But she's a blogger. She's
and Trini, apparently.
Yes. And which, for those of you, most of you probably know, Nikki is Trini. So she's a hip-hop blogger. And so this all started when she tweeted, "You know how dope it would be if Nikki put out mature content? No silly shit, just reflection on past relationships, being a boss, hardships, etc. She's touching 40 soon. A new direction is needed." So she just tweeted this. And she, didn't realize that it would turn into a shitstorm because, of course, all the barbs, which is what they called the Nikki fans, the stands, the 12-year-olds, started tagging Nikki on her tweet. And so apparently Nikki didn't take those words too well. And instead of just Nikki in the past has retweeted people, so directly saying eat a dick, blah, 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 to people who have been critical, but she actually hopped into her DMs and put screenshots because she's like, I know people wouldn't believe me, so you could look them up and read them yourself. And so Nikki said, "When your ugly ass was 24, you were pushing 30. I'm 34. I'm touching 40. LOL. And what does that have to do with my music? Eat a dick, you hating ass hoe."
And then the funny part was that she came back and then corrected it and said, "Oh, I'm 35.
Yeah.
And it's Nikki, how old are you really?
Yeah, I know.
The world may never know.
I know. And so Juana says that after that, she just started getting all these hate tweets, all these messages. People started looking at past stuff that she posted. She posted a picture of her kid, and they started saying shit about her kid. She apparently got fired from her internship. Because the internship said that Nikki turned out to be a client, and that they can't have, they're like, "Oh, Nikki didn't want you to be fired, but we just, they claimed that in talking about her conversations with Nikki, she violated her non-disclosure agreement." And so just Juana in the end was what was crazy is they made a New York Times article because it was just so crazy how it escalated so quickly, but how they're saying that there's this new trend of rappers, entertainers, celebrities targeting people, and as a result their fan base turns on that person, and it turns into cyberbullying, and then people post their emails and people post personal information. And so I read the New York Times article and I saw the tweet, and I've heard people discussing this on other podcasts. One of the podcasts I listen to a lot is The Read, and they were talking about it. And I just, I am a Nikki fan. I totally agreed with Juana's tweet.
Yeah.
Because I really do feel like you have to grow. Yeah. I feel even if, I'm not saying you have to get married and have kids and settle down and talk about this. No. But I do think in the 10, 15 year span of her career, she has gone from being just, signed with Cash Money to now she's the fucking biggest, one of the biggest hip hop stars ever. And so I would expect, and I've seen her have some moments where she does talk about sexism in the industry. She does talk about why she makes a big deal about being specific about what food that she has in her dressing room, because as a woman, she feels like they try to always make it seem like she deserves less than men, and she wants to make it known that she's as big as Wayne, she's as big as Drake, she deserves for them to treat her the same way. And I think that those things are fair. But when I lately just seeing, I don't like the responding to people, responding to criticism. And even if she was responded, she would, eat a dick, you hating ass hoe. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, we didn't even read the full, quote. There was also some other stuff about, be, honest about the fact that, you're jealous because I have money and I'm da-da-da-da. I don't remember all the different adjectives that she used to describe herself. But
yeah,
I just think that I'm not sure if maybe she's having some kind of identity crisis or what it is. But even a couple weeks ago, she was talking about how she feels bad for women who are, I can't remember the words that she used, but basically she feels bad for women that are selling sex. And all of this stuff, and like being super judgmental and all of that. And so I think it would be one thing if Nicki came out and said, you know what, I make this music, but these aren't things that I actually believe in. You know, these are just lyrics or whatever. But it's like, Nicki, you cannot come out with a song about essentially prostitution.
Yeah. I mean, her song "Rich Sex."
Yeah, and then literally a few days later, talking about bashing women whose lives you're describing, essentially.
Yeah.
Like, what? I don't understand. And so maybe you're saying that this is not a lifestyle that you live because you have so much money and all of that stuff. But this is your belief system. And whether you like it or not, because I know Cardi also, you know, had the same, like, the same point of view that I didn't ask to be your kid's role model.
Yeah.
Yada, yada, yada. Okay, fine. You don't have to be a role model, but then to turn her, like, so I'm not saying that, because Nicki's fans are clearly, you know, children.
Yeah.
And so I'm not saying that you need to mother them or you need to be making music about staying in school and, you know, going to college and getting a good job and all these things. No, you don't necessarily have to do that. But this is taking responding to constructive criticism to a whole other level. Like, regardless of whether there were children involved or not, this is degrading. And, like, you, as somebody that is, like, so arrogant and, like, oh, I'm, you know, the baddest bee and all of y'all are my sons and all this stuff, but you feel the need to hop into somebody's DMs who, I mean, is not even remotely, in your opinion, on your level, career-wise, like, or status-wise, and you are so offended by the fact that she said that your music was immature, that you need to call her ugly and encourage your fans to talk shit about her and her child and all of these things, and then get her fired from her internship? Yeah. That is wild. That is wild. If you're so about empowering women, like, why is that something that you would support?
Yeah.
For a tweet to me that seems constructive.
Yeah.
Like, you're making a song about rich sex. And yes, Nicki, you're pushing 40.
I know. She's like, 35 is 35, not 40. I'm like, well, if we go by math and if we round up, then yes, 35 is pushing 40.
Yeah, and it's like, fine if you want to make that kind of music, but don't be fake about it like that's not the case.
Yeah.
Like, that's not the music that you make. No, this is who you are.
Yeah.
Just embrace it. Like, embrace it. Nobody is. First of all, I was actually thinking, I think I was having a conversation about, like, something similar as far as Beyonce is concerned. And so Beyonce started off, like, very young, making, I would say, pretty mature music. You know, like, no cursing in her music.
Oh, yeah.
Very few, like, there was, like, some hinting about sex, but nothing, like, super explicit. And now that she is in her mid to late 30s, now she's doing all the, like, cursing in her music.
Yeah.
You know, very explicit sexual references. Mm-hmm. Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Nobody cares. Beyonce is releasing photo shoot spreads with in a thong with her husband. Nobody cares. But you know what Beyonce also isn't doing? Isn't like, what? I don't do that. What? Oh my gosh. Yeah. Like, didn't you hear this song? Didn't you hear that song? Like, no.
I'm rich. You're not. You're
She's
jealous.
Living her life.
Yeah.
She's living her life. Beyonce does not care. And it's like, girl, take some notes.
Yeah.
Honestly, take some notes. Like, this was just disgusting to see.
Yeah. Yeah, so I definitely think Juana had a valid point. I think that, I think people need to grow up in their music. Mm-hmm. She's, like, literally making music with, like, 19, 20-year-olds, and it's because she's able to she raps about things that the 19, like, Lil Pumps, the Little Uzi Verts, like, that all those people are rapping about. She's able to have fans that are 13, 14 at 35 because her music isn't really...
It doesn't age.
It doesn't age, yeah. And I'm not saying that she can't rap about sex and she can't rap about drugs, whatever, yeah, but I'm just saying it's kind of hypocritical to rap about those things and then go on and do an interview and say that, you know, people who do that are, like, passing judgment on people who have
like she's holier than thou.
Yeah. And so I don't know. I definitely agreed with Juana, and it kind of brought me to like just kind of a bigger question about, okay, well, what is this beef between Nicki and this blogger like telling us? And so, Ebony, do you think like we're expecting too much from hip hop and its artists? Like, in other words, should we really be looking to Nicki Minaj to be mature, to be a role model, to be an activist outside of being an entertainer? Or should she just like keep making singles like Chun-Li and like us not expect anything more than just some music to dance to?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't know if this is a minority opinion, but I do think that we should hold artists accountable, because at this point, rappers are not just rappers. Like they are seeped into every aspect of our culture. Like all these endorsements that they have, they're everywhere. You can't escape them. They're actors. They're everywhere. And so I do think that, and they want that kind of fame and notoriety because it comes with more money. But if you're gonna opt into that, you have to opt into. I think that you have to opt into it all across the board. You can't just be like, oh, I want all of these different roles, but only see me as a rapper. Like, have this really siloed, voice in the world. No, you are, I think, then required to speak up on things. And I think that maybe it's our generation of rappers that don't want to do that. But I think that previous, like the last generation, there's only been like 2 generations of like hip hop artists. But, before, like they were, I think, invested in society, in culture, in, putting out messages and making sure that, they started like different foundations, they have scholarships, they, even like say Puff Daddy with his like vote or die movement. Like these are, and who else has like, I don't know, a bunch of people have foundations and stuff like that, things that they're doing that are good for the community. And so it's like, I think there's only a handful of rappers who are very resistant to that and are like, no, this is all I want to be and that's it. So yeah, I don't know. I think that to whom much is given, much is expected. So you can't just be sitting back like, yeah, I want all of these things, but then don't come to me about all this other nonsense I'm spewing. No, you're going to be held accountable on both ends.
Yeah. I mean, Nicki does, like, give out money to people. She does. If she only put herself in the little pumps or the... Like, I'm making money for me. I'm making money for my chains. I'm making money so I can get rich. Like, it's just me having a party. If she only did that, then I'd be like, fine, like, that's what she does. But, like, every once in a while, she'll make it seem like she's about, helping other women. She's about, she'll go on Ellen and, talk to little girls who want to be like her. And so it's just kind of like... I'm just so confused as to like it's like she's like doing half naked mermaid on her video, and then she's like on Ellen talking to like 6-year-olds. I don't know. And I think that what I do is like I compare Nicki to people who have been rapping as long as her or are at the same level, and I'm like, okay, well, I look at, like, for example, Nas. Like, Nas was doing music, didn't do music for a while, just came back with his album. I listened to it, and in that album, he's talking about police brutality, he's talking about poverty, he's talking about real shit. So you listen to it, and you're like, oh, damn, Nas grew up. Like, Nas isn't just, the same person that he was 20 years or however long years ago. He's actually talking about relevant shit that really hits, like, shit that, like, I can relate to. And so I look at that and I'm like, well, then why can't, like, Nicki do that in her music
that's
too?
That's why they didn't work out.
I just like, I want she's had songs where, like, I get down to and I'm like, yeah, like, it makes me feel like I can do everything. Like, it makes me feel like, I can go out. This is a really good party song. But I also want songs from her that make me feel like, okay, like, Nicki gets it. Nicki, like, even though she's really famous, she's really rich, she understands what it's like to be a minority. She understands what it's like to be a woman of color. She understands what it's like. And so, like, hearing that she, in interviews, I've heard her say things that I'm like, yes, like, highlight this. Like, you're a powerful woman, and you talk about how hard it was to get there. You talk about how you know, you had to work your way up. You talk about how you had to, you know, be sexualized initially by the men that you worked with and all this stuff. And now you're like more in control of your sexuality. But she doesn't. She comes, like, her new album is, and although her stands say that she does talk about these things in her album, but
she says she does too. Apparently she listed all these songs.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you must not have heard this.
Yeah. So I don't know. I also feel that, like, if Nicki were not trying to be like, I'm about kids, I'm about women, I'm about, you know, bosses, I'm about all these things, then I wouldn't hold her to a much higher standard. But because she does those things and she tries to integrate herself, like, she gives back to the community, like, she's one of us, like, she cares about us, like, she loves us as fans, she really wants to, like, if she didn't do all that stuff, then maybe I'd give her a pass. But I think, like, you can't do both. You can't, like, want to be perceived as this person who is giving a lot, who's doing a lot, who's helping a lot, who's empowering, and then also do what I would call childish stuff. Like, I mean, like, people have left us comments, and I don't go and be like, eat a dick, hoe. You're not gonna tell me, like, that this comment is stupid. Like, if people have straight up called our comments stupid, have called us stupid, and, like, I'm just like, you gotta, like, move along. But she's so
especially
rich.
I think when you're at that level, and you recognize that your anger can propel your fans to attack.
Yeah.
Like, your fans, like, they were emailing this woman, like, to
Terrible
her job email, and just talking about her child.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that what I think that it is with Nicki is that she wants to do it on her terms. So if she decides, she wakes up today and is like, you know what, this week, I want to be empowering to women. And then she's going to do it. She does not want people to have that expectation of her. Yeah. She doesn't want people to be calling her out on that. And then, I mean, and it's not like we have this expectation of all women in the industry. Like, nobody is, like, pushing Lil' Kim or pushing Trina to do something different because they don't talk about it. Yeah. They don't talk about it. They don't they don't put on this, you know, fake woke hat like Nicki does. And it's like, no, if you don't want that, then just don't do it. Don't claim it, and then we won't hold you to that standard. Yeah. And so, just, like, continuing this conversation, I heard someone talk about how this beef or this clap back from Nicki to the blogger highlighted, like, class issues. And so one of the points that someone made was that Nicki may be too rich to remember what it's like to be a minority. And I've heard people make this about Kanye. I've heard people make this about different artists, even, like, athletes and stuff. And so although Juana and Nicki are both Black women and women of color, do you think that the money has clouded Nicki's, like, memory of what it's like to be up and coming, or what it's like? Because this woman is, like, a blogger. Like, she's trying to break into the entertainment industry. And do you think that maybe Nicki reacts in this way because she's just, like, so used to being, like, so rich, so famous, so popular, so in charge, that she's living in a reality that none of us can relate to anymore? I do think that she's living in a different reality than a lot of us, but I don't think it has anything to do with class. I think it's that she's probably on drugs. I mean, like, and not even to be funny, but, like, I've heard other people talking about that, like, you know, there's been a lot of stuff going around that, like, oh, Nicki is, like, you know, she's been heavy on drugs, like, you know, these last couple of years. And so I don't obviously know that 100% to be true, but this seems kind of strange. You know, and I mean, also, like you said, you brought up Kanye, and we had that episode where we were talking about those 2 episodes talking about double consciousness. And similarly, I mean, I don't know if Kanye is on, like, street drugs, but, you know, he's got his own issues and stuff like that. And I think that there are a lot of, so not to do pseudoscience here, but I think that there are a lot of things like a lot of behaviors that seem manic that are derived from like other things, you know? So you can do, I don't know, what's the name for street drugs? How do I differentiate street drugs from prescriptions? I don't know. Whatever. Y'all understand what I'm talking about. There are certain street drugs that I think can, you know, result in kind of manic-like symptoms in the same way that, say, like some mental disorder could. And I don't know. It seems like this is kind of like a lot of her comments lately have been really just out of nowhere and just unnecessarily trollish. Because that's trolling.
Yeah.
Like, you hop in somebody's DMs and call them ugly and a hoe.
Yeah.
You're a troll. And I feel like she's way too, like... And then also, it's like, so certain celebrities do it, and you'll see this Shade Room posted, like, you know, this, like, snap... What do they call it? Is it snap... Something. Some kind of comeback where...
Oh, clapback?
Clapback. There you go. I don't know why I want to say snapback.
It's like when you get back in shape.
Yeah, but clapback. So the Shade Room will talk about it when they clap back in the comments. And so I think that celebrities are doing that, like, as a, you know, to make a show out of, you know, out of embarrassing somebody. But Nikki went in her DMs. So she wasn't even looking for, like, yeah, you got on her head. Like, she was really looking to, like, degrade this woman and make her sad.
Yeah.
Like, that's the goal there. That seems strange to me.
Yeah.
Very unusual.
Okay. And then what I also heard some people talk about is, like, does this clapback or this beef between Nikki and this woman kind of highlight the lack of support among women of color in general, or specifically among Black women? And so just,
I think so.
Are we harder amongst ourselves? And, you know, you and I were talking about just beyond personal experiences, but, like, what we see in entertainment and on the news, and the beef that they always put between Cardi and Nikki and everyone else. And it's like, we were talking about the, what is it, like a metaphor story, just about, like, the crabs in a barrel, and how, like, you know, you never see crabs getting out of the barrel, because when one tries to make itself out, to get itself out, the other crabs will pull it back in. And so kind of just being like, there isn't a lot of, at times, there isn't a lot of support among certain communities. And so do you think that this clapback is a good example of the lack of support among women of color?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think that, I don't know, I think that there are a lot of internal issues within the Black community. And I think particularly among Black women, in that it seems like it's really difficult for some Black women to be supportive of others. You know, it seems like it's easier or more second nature to tear them down or to nitpick and to find something negative to say than to, you know, like, just be encouraging and just, like, really boost somebody's, like, esteem, you know, and to, you know, be, I don't know, like, to just be like there's, I don't know, it's crazy because there is this notion of, like, sisterhood among Black women, right? But it's one of those, like, you know, have you heard the saying of how, like, I can be mean to my sibling, but nobody else can? So, like that, where it's like, okay, when it comes to outsiders, yeah, we're going to stand together and we are strong. But when it comes to us, you know, an internal kind of, like, conflict, it's like, no, all of that sisterhood just falls to the wayside, it seems. You know, and obviously this is not, you know, I'm generalizing, this is not all Black women, but I have seen it a lot in the media recently. And, I mean, even just growing up, you know, like in college and stuff like that, there's a lot of beefs. There's the whole, like, beef in terms of, like, complexion and all of that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. But I do think that it is a symptom of that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and we were talking about this in preparation for this episode, and we talk about, you know, because we both, you know, follow the Shade Room, and one of my favorite things is looking at the comments, because that's where, like, shit goes down. Yeah.
I find the comments, and I think it's because the reason that I think one of the reasons that I read the comments is because I live in an echo chamber. Like, for the most part, my friends and stuff think similarly to the way that I do. Like, there obviously are going to be differences, but for the most part, I hear the same, ways of thinking day in and day out. So to see comments and be like, oh, there are people in the world that think like, not even in the world, there are people in my community that think like this. Yeah. A lot of times I'm like, what? Oh. Are you serious? But
that's more, I mean, that's good. I like going for the mess. I like reading. And so one of the things we were talking about is, Gabrielle Union talking about how she, one day asked her sons, to show her like 10 girls that they liked on Instagram. And she realized that they were all the same girl, like light-skinned, big boobs, big butt, like long hair. And how she asked them, okay, now show me like chocolate, girls or girls with darker complexion. And they were like, oh, there aren't any. Mm-hmm. And so just kind of like highlighting how she, like, that moment for her and what it meant, kind of like reflective of like, man, it really, like, that's really the message that we're conveying, not only to boys, but also to girls, is that this is a certain beauty, this is the type of beauty that you should, look for. And so you were talking about how you were looking at the comments, and similar to that, there was like another thread of, I don't know if you saw this, but like Michael B. Jordan was like partying in Italy, and he's partying in Europe. Mm-hmm. They caught him in France and they caught him in Italy. Mm-hmm. And so they showed a picture of him with, in the comments, people were arguing that she was black. People were arguing that she wasn't black because she was light complected.
But people have already been saying, like, didn't you already say in an interview or something like that?
And that's what people are, and so.
Why are we still even talking about that?
And so in the comments, people were like, it starts off with attacking Michael B. Jordan. Okay. And then it goes into attacking each other. And so one of the things that, what I did notice is that all, like, the people who had avatars that were black men kept saying, like, gosh, like, black women are just always hating on other black women. Like, black women are always, like,
and
hating.
Yet these same black men instigate these arguments.
And
they instigate these conflicts.
And so I was just kind of like, it was just really interesting for me to see that and to kind of just ask myself, like, okay, do we see this in the Latino community? Like, do I see this among, like, Latinas? And then, just from my personal experience, I don't know if I see it so much on Instagram or among celebrities, but in my personal experience, sometimes I feel like I've had accomplishments, or, it most often is highlighted through my mom because, I'm in school, so everyone around me, like, we're the Latinas in school. Like, it's just like I'm sometimes one of the only Latinas in the room. So this is really highlighted with my mom. And so my mom talks about how she talks to her friends, and her friends, she's telling her friends, that I'm getting a PhD, that I'm going to be a doctor. And then her friends will say, well, no, she's not really a doctor because a doctor gives prescriptions. Like, you shouldn't say that. And and so my mom was just kind of like, she tells me that, and that's when she told me the story about the crabs, and like, just to be careful because, sometimes even your own community. And I just remember, like, even telling her, just bringing up, like, I got published, like, just, she'd be like, oh, my daughter got something published, and they'd be like, well, did she get paid? And and it's just kind of like, I don't think that they really want me to fail, but it's like it seems like it's so much easier to criticize and to, like, take you down a peg and to, like, check you in some way than it is to be supportive. And that is when I was reading that, when we were talking about this, about, like, although this is two black women, I was like, and my mom's friends are all Latinas, and they all, they're all immigrants. They all have children here, and they all want to have children who are successful. But, like, in that moment when my mom was trying to, like, bring something positive about, like, isn't this great that my daughter's doing this? Their initial response is, well, this is why it's not that great. Mm-hmm. And so it was just kind of like, I think, like, sometimes we are harder amongst ourselves as a community, and we already get so much shit from, like, non-people of color. So to have it from our own community sometimes feels really, and so I'm just, like, imagining Juana and imagining, like, even beyond this being Nicki, like such a famous person, like another black woman just like attacking me, a black woman, like I just can't imagine, like it just must be really frustrating.
Yeah, I think that there's something really deeply psychological about it because again, I think I was telling you before that I don't even think that people themselves realize when they're doing it, because it's not necessarily saying something outright negative. It's just like you said, knocking this person down a peg, highlighting the ways that what they're doing isn't that great or could have been better. They're doing this, but it could have been better if she was getting paid, or it could have been better if she could give me drugs or whatever, you know? And it's like, you know, and I think that that's kind of what led Nicki to slide in her DMs. It's like, oh, this girl thinks she's all big and bad, so big and bad that she can criticize me. Well, let me knock her down a peg, you know? And I think obviously the underlying agent there is like an insecurity, right? Mm-hmm. But everybody has insecurities. And so it's like, how do you resolve that tension? How do you recognize that two things can be true? That person can be awesome and you can still be awesome. It's not that person's awesomeness taking away from yours. Yeah. You know? And so I don't know how we do that. I mean, I guess just more conversation and more talking to the daughters in our community and letting them know that you can still be great and she can be great and y'all can be great together. Yeah. And, you know, genuinely encourage one another and be open and receptive to constructive criticism, because, you know, this is not an opinion, an isolated opinion. This woman doesn't live in a vacuum. Yeah. Like, wherever these thoughts came from, I'm sure there are tons of others. Like, there are tons of other potential or former Nicki stans or fans that probably don't listen to her music anymore because they've aged out of it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a choice to be made there. Like, there's growth. There's always growth that can happen. There's always space for growth. Even, like, you know, like, if we want to keep using, like, say, Beyonce and Jay-Z as examples, like, their music has aged with them. Yeah, yeah. You know, and a lot of people, I think, couldn't do that. Their music couldn't do that, and so they retired or whatever. Or tons of rappers talk about how, like, if your music can't age, then you die off. Yeah, like, or you eventually become irrelevant.
Or like J. Cole says, you end up on Love and Hip Hop.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's like Nicki is, I guess, offended that this woman, you know, put out this opinion, but she isn't alone. Like, there are tons of opinions out there like this.
And there are literally people whose job is to review CD albums, review, like...
You can't run from it. Those what do you call that? Her rankings, or what do you call it? Yeah. Like, wherever her music sits on the Billboard? Uh-huh. I think it's ranking. Yeah. Like, those ranking, like, that's pretty evident in the rankings. It's like, clearly something you're doing isn't working because people aren't listening to your music. Yeah. Like, so your 12-year-old stans and stuff like that, they can follow you on Twitter, they can follow you on Instagram and come to your defense all the time, but guess who's paying for their Tidal subscription, their Apple Music subscription, all of these subscriptions, or not paying for it? Yeah. Their parents. Yes. And so that's why you don't have nobody listening to your music. Yeah, because
they're not buying it.
Yes. Yeah. They can't get a subscription because their parents are like, you want to listen to who? No.
And so the final question that I wanted us to talk about in this episode, more geared towards like just hip hop in general. And so as I was, you know, reading through the articles and listening to what people were saying about this beef between Nicki and Wana, I was just like, you know, I was taking a step back and I was like, does my hip hop have to be woke? Like, can I listen to Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole, but also enjoy Nicki Minaj, Yo Gotti, and A$AP Ferg? And so it's something that I wanted us to like conclude this episode with, just because like in the larger scheme of things, it's like, you know, maybe it's okay for me to listen to Nicki, but also like she's my like get lit music. She's my like getting ready to go out music. She's my like workout music. But then maybe I rely on Kendrick, Cole, and Jay-Z to be able to give me some more like, and Nas to be able to give me some more like soul food, like food for my soul. And so do you think like hip hop has to be woke? Like, is it okay to have, and I keep using him, but that's because I don't know why he's in my mind. I think it's just I saw that he bought a new chain, Lil Pump, and it's like, you know, he literally makes music about nothing. Mm-hmm. And so it's like, is it okay to have people like that? Because maybe hip-hop doesn't have to be woke. Maybe it's like that's not what hip-hop is. It started off as like party music, and so do you think that it's okay to have non-woke music?
But see, even that is not true. Like, if you think about like African Bambaataa, right? So the original rappers were rapping about their lived experiences, right? So even NWA, like all of those things, that was like conscious rap, and that's where it came from. But then you had people that came along like Dougie Fresh, what's old boy whose name I can't think of with the clock. That person.
Flavor.
Yeah, there you go. Yes. So then you did have those people at that came along a little bit after, around the same time. I think that maybe my fear, I think that you should have both, right? So there's a good balance.
Yeah.
I think that I love J. Cole, but his last few albums you cannot play those in the club. You can't.
No, you can't.
I wouldn't want to listen to them in the club. But I think that you need both, and I'm not sure if this upcoming generation has both. All I'm seeing for them is nonsense, and so it makes it seem like, I think that when you have that balance, so you have say Wayne, right? All he's rapping about are drugs, in women. And so if that's all you see, or when I was in high school, if that was all I had to listen to, I might have thought that was real life.
Yeah.
That oh, this must be how it is because this is what everybody's talking about. I'm missing out if I'm not doing that, right? But then if I didn't have somebody on the other side, if I didn't have a Jay-Z to balance it out or something like that lets me know that or a Nas or a Common, there's a different side to that life.
Yeah.
To that industry. So I think if all you have is Lil Pump to listen to, or Lil this, Lil that, and they're all talking about the same thing, all talking about Percocets, all talking about Molly, then who do you have to show you that is not the only way to be cool?
Yeah. No, I think that's true, and I think that's a good point, and then just I don't always want to think. Sometimes I really do just want, Yo Gotti's Rake It Up, something about it just makes me feel like it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Today will be fine. I don't always, I have my reality TV. I love my housewives. I sometimes I just really just want to just be entertained. And so I think I think your point is important that wherever Nikki falls for you, wherever it is, maybe she is in your non-woke pile or whatever, but I think we really just got, as we age ourselves, I think something's wrong if you're still listening to the same music that you listened to when you were 10 years ago.
Yeah. And if your first and your last album sound the same.
Yes. And so I think, the issue we wanted to highlight here is what happens when a celebrity goes too far into not taking criticism well and not supporting other women and not, I don't know, just, it's so easy to cyberbully, and I think that in the age of social media, celebrities have a certain power that they didn't used to have before, and so I think that we do need to hold celebrities accountable. I mean, take Kanye. Even if you don't want to be a role model, even if you don't want to be someone who's my ideas are for me, I'm a creative, this is just the process. It's yes, but you can't escape the fact that your creative process and your ideas and what you say have consequences for millions of people, for thousands of fans
that don't have your money and your network and your connections and all that stuff.
And don't have the ability to say, this is Nikki as an entertainer. Maybe this isn't Nikki at home. Maybe this isn't Nikki an aunt. Maybe this isn't Nikki the daughter. It's people literally think that that Nikki is the Nikki that they should be all 24/7, and that Nikki is only possible because she's a millionaire, because she does this for a living, because she has made a career out of being that way, and in the real world, that Nikki is not realistic.
Yeah.
So
she needs to take a note from her ex, because I was so impressed with him, getting out, so Jay-Z helped to expedite him getting out of jail.
Yeah.
He recognized that, and he recognized that everybody doesn't have that level of access.
Yeah.
And so what is he doing now? Advocating for prison reform, because he sees that his experience is not the norm.
Yeah.
It is unique. She does not recognize that.
Yeah.
Like, Nikki thinks that she's just like everybody. No, you know good and well you have the ability to get this woman fired.
Mm-hmm.
She can't do that for you.
Yeah.
She cannot do that.
Yeah.
And that's wild to me, that it's like you recognize that you have that level of, or I don't know if she does. I don't know if she's oblivious, but it's like to have that level of pull and to still be okay bashing this woman online. Yeah. Like, that takes cyberbullying to a whole other level.
Yeah, and it's dangerous because they were bringing in her family. They got her fired. They were using her work. And so
Black Twitter is crazy. Like, these people should be PIs. Like, they find people's address. Like, it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, so, we just wanted to just have a more casual conversation about something in social media that we thought had, like, larger implications, not only about hip-hop, not only about solidarity among women of color, but also about, like, the consciousness of music and whether maybe it's us, like, maybe we're putting too much on this one person and we should be more reflective about what it is that we need to do and what it is that society as a whole, like, is society enabling for Nikki to be able to just, like, get someone fired and, like, have a following of people just torment someone and then move on and then not think twice about the fact that this woman, she said, like, I think she said in the article she has to go to like, she's contemplating going to therapy. Like, this woman has been traumatized.
Yeah.
And so,
and they don't even care. It's like, that was just a day's work.
Yeah. So we need to be more responsible with it. So if you have any questions, if you have any feedback, any comments, as always, feel free to email us at woke.ishpodcast@gmail.com. Also, follow us on Instagram at wokeishpodcast. You can send us a message in our DMs or just like our videos or drop us a comment. We also have a YouTube channel and available on lots of other outlets. You can also follow us on Twitter at
wokeishpod.
Yes. And so we are wrapping up this episode. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.